Isn't this the appeal people see in Islam? It is said to be a much simpler faith. And it's one that can try to encompass all the other quote-unquote prophets, right?
So it's simpler, for sure.
Yeah.
But then you get into Islam and you realize it has a lot of historical issues. Like the Quran denies that Jesus was crucified.
Right.
You know, Mike Licona and Bart Ehrman did an 8-hour debate on the resurrection.
I know. Did you listen to the whole thing?
I listened to most of it.
I paid to listen, and I listened to about 20 minutes. I'll probably get there. But.
My favorite part of that whole debate was they just kept saying, everyone knows Jesus was crucified. Denying that is ridiculous. And I kept thinking, they don't mention Islam, but I kept thinking about that in the back of my head. Well, so you could say on the surface, maybe Islam sounds simple. But when you start getting into the nitty gritty problems in the Quran, issues with like Surah 65 verse 4,
which is
about women you're allowed to sleep with, and it could very well imply you're allowed to sleep with prepubescent girls. Some have argued that, and it puts the hair up on the back of my neck, and how you're allowed to hit women, and the morality that comes out of Islam just seems so, it just violates everything I know about ethics. It just didn't come from a morally perfect being. That's my biggest objection to Islam. But then also the historical blunders in it, like getting the idea of Jesus not being crucified. Like, why would you have that in there? That this is just, historians that deny the resurrection say the one thing we know about history is Jesus was crucified, and the Quran denies it. We know a lot of the stories in the Quran came from Jewish and Christian apocrypha works, like the Infancy Gospel of Thomas or the Targum of Esther, and it's like this. We know where this stuff came from. This is not coming from a morally perfect being. This is coming from a culture of its time in Arabia that had limited access to some Christian and Jewish texts.
Do you think it's more helpful to think of Islam as a Christian heresy then?
I mean, technically you could think of it that way, I guess. I mean, it kind of is.
Why is it, do you think, that those who would be in the camp of those we would call woke seem more open to Islam or defending Islam? They
because the woke crowd is all about the oppressed. And in their view, Islam is oppressed by Christians in the West. We don't celebrate Ramadan, but we celebrate Christmas and Easter. Well, that's oppression, because Muslims don't get their special holidays, special time for them, but Christians get their special time for their holidays. So they feel for the oppressed, the transgender community, and religious minorities. They don't realize that it's vehemently opposed to Islam is vehemently opposed to wokeism, and Muslims can quote me on that. I fully believe that. I just look at the two different doctrines, the two different beliefs, and but the woke crowd doesn't realize that. All they're thinking is they're oppressed, therefore we're on the same side. But that's such a surface understanding of Islam, and it's horrible.
Have you done any debates with Muslims?
I will. April 22nd.
April 22nd.
I'm debating Daniel Hakikachu on if child marriage should be allowed. It's going to be a fun debate. Tune in. It'll be on Modern Day Debate.
And he's taking the affirmative.
Yeah.
And YouTube will allow these views?
I hope so.
I mean, in the debate, it'll be different because you're coming together, but presumably he shared these views elsewhere on YouTube.
He sure has.
And these videos are allowed to stand. This is nuts.
Just get ready for a wild ride. That's all I'll say.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Would you like this beautiful, very high quality, definitely not made in China, not that there's anything wrong with that, Pints with Aquinas beer stein for free, sent to your door? Would you also like a copy of The Jill sent to your door 4 times a year? This is the Pints with Aquinas newspaper, by the way. If you do, go to mattfradd.locals.com and become an annual supporter for any amount. We'll send you that stuff for free, and you get a bunch of other free things in return. You'll get more information by going over to mattfradd.locals.com. Thanks.